Perfect.
Yeah, everyone's here.
Hi, everyone. So we are back with our second panel. We have Gaurav from founder of Infotech Hub, Raghu, CEO of IBC Media, and Ashish Mehta, who is chair at Blockchain Working Group. So we're going to have some good discussions around blockchain, mostly focused on what the future of blockchain looks like and how, in terms of financial system, how blockchain has been playing a good role and how it will, might work in other industries also. So my question is the same to you guys, which was this. I asked the same question to the previous panelists also.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah. Yes, Rohan, I can hear you.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last question. Could you please repeat that?
Yes, so I'm gonna start with a question which I
Okay.
asked the other panelists also. So when are we going to see the next blockchain win to say? In 2011, 12, 13, everybody was saying that hey, blockchain, everything is gonna move to blockchain and Bitcoin is the future. So that didn't happen for the longest time, and then we went to remittances. We said, oh, we're going to bank the unbanked everywhere in the world, and that didn't happen. That kind of flopped the idea. And then the ICOs came about, and those ICOs were like they're going to change the entire phase of crowdfunding industry altogether. But that also didn't happen. ICOs were all like mostly a lot of scams were there, to be honest. So I just want to ask you guys, and starting with you, Rohan, if Raghu, sorry, if you could, when do you think that the next breakthrough after Bitcoin blockchain will have, and what kind of what industry should we look at, and what is the perspective of like a future of blockchain moving from 2020 to maybe 2025 and 2030?
Well, I'm not an oracle, so I will not
Yeah,
take a bet on the future. I
yeah,
think some trends are obviously showing up in this side of things. Clearly, cross-border remittances is a thing that is working with respect to crypto. For example, and I don't say this from the standpoint of Ripple and things like that. The most impactful quote I've heard recently is that the first Bitcoin that people will earn their first Bitcoin, not buy it. So it is actually a great way to transfer value across borders in a very seamless, cost-effective, and efficient manner. So that let's be clear about the fact that that is a gain that has already been achieved. It is now just a question of adoption from that standpoint. The second thing that I'm looking at is that between provenance traceability and provenance traceability, data privacy, and data integrity, there are already several use cases that are coming up. But instead of looking for solutions to use the blockchain for, we've got to be looking at problems where the blockchain fits. It makes sense to fit in, and
exactly.
this is something that we've been kind of trying to address by looking at mainstream companies who can make their products better with blockchain. Anyone who handles data can actually consider using blockchain for some sort of a consent layer between them, their system, and their users. Anyone who is looking at some sort of provenance, some part of it can be put on the blockchain, and those are the kind of use cases that we are looking at, and there have been a couple of accelerators that we have done as well. I
Right.
don't want to look too far into the future right now in terms of scale. Bitcoin has already shown that there is a strong use case, and it is being traded in the billions on a daily basis. So I think that we've got to take that as a strong win
Right.
rather than look at it as just
Absolutely.
because it has achieved
Yeah.
global domination doesn't mean that that it doesn't mean that we haven't achieved anything out of here. I think the next wave will clearly be large scale applications that leverage the blockchain to make some part of their product offering better. And I think Gartner calls this hybrid blockchain or pragmatic blockchain, as they call it.
All right.
And
Yeah.
I see some merit there. But look, we are comparing this to technologies that have existed forever, right? Blockchain is still 10 years old. 11, and it is going to take some time before it gains mainstream adoption. But in the time, what it has already achieved is great, and we must be cognizant of that before before trying to put it up to unrealistic expectations.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. Let's see. Yeah. So, Ashish, do you have something to weigh in on that?
The thing is, see, I look at it from two perspectives. One is first and most important is we have to make it very clear to the to most of the audience or most of consumers that Bitcoin and blockchain are not interchangeable. They are two different things.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is one kind of a blockchain, but a blockchain may not, may see, Bitcoin is used for payments primarily, payments or currency transfers. But a Bitcoin and a blockchain could have completely different use cases also. So that is something very important, which a lot of people are struggling to make the classification. So I'll look at both aspects separately. The first is the issue of other use cases, some of which Raghu also had alluded to: supply chain, identity and access management, IoT. So these are some of the more primary use cases which are seeing a lot of traction globally, and that is completely the price of Bitcoin or any other blockchain is completely irrelevant there.
Right.
Decentralized games is another very famous, very prominent example. So the price of blockchain or any of the cryptocurrency is completely irrelevant there. It really doesn't matter. So this is a space which is where because there are less barriers of entry from the government side, regulatory barriers. This is the space where you will see faster adoption and which is already happening. And at the Cloud Security Alliance, you had the good fortune to work with them as well as publish some of the use cases also. So this is a space which is going to see even more traction going ahead as pilots are coming out, a lot of MVPs are coming out into the market, and enterprises are trying their various permutations and combinations in the space to see what works best for them. The second part is the currency or the money aspect. Here I think the biggest push has now come from the World Economic Forum. They've in January of this year they've released something called a central bank digital currency toolkit.
Mm.
So till now, there was a lot of opposition from central bankers globally for adoption of various blockchain, digital currencies. But now that the World Economic Forum has come on board with a very comprehensive toolkit, you can you can download and you can see the whole toolkit where they have gotten contributions from over 50 global central bankers. I think that road becomes easier now to convince somebody whether cryptocurrencies are something which should be used, how should they be used, whether I so that road will become simpler, but it will take some more time. And the other thing is here that we will need to see central bank related digital currencies gain traction first, like the one that China is pushing recently over the last 3 4 months, something of that sort. So until you have this I would say government certificate, you won't see the jump from say 2 3% of global transactions to the 10 15% range. That government certification or regulatory approval is very important here.
Yeah.
So so
Yeah.
that is a
Right.
that is
Yeah.
something which will happen in the next 12 to 18 months.
Okay. Gaurav, are you there? Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yes. Thank you. I thought your attention is somewhere else. Thank you.
Yeah,
So
actually, Kumar is sitting just next to me, and he's wondering if it's working for everyone else. So
it seems to be working, and yeah. Sorry
no,
about that.
it's not working for Raghu, for Rohan. He has been in
Rohan.
and
Yeah.
out times as yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway,
yeah. Could you have your 2 cents on the big wins for blockchain that might lie ahead in the future in the next 2 3 years?
I like to take it from where Raghu left, and I think I agree almost 95% with what Raghu said, except for the fact that it's not just me, but the broken architecture of supply chains with the impact of COVID. I think this is the best ever time in the history of blockchain. that we have got a chance, the blockchain industry as a whole has got a chance to prove itself. Not to mention, it has proved more than expected, more than anything, any emerging tech of the last 2 decades, except for internet. It has already proved in the financial side of it. I generally don't ever find an argument to that, and even if I find, I don't agree to it. But if and I think when Satoshi invented, or let's say sort of drafted the Bitcoin white paper, the primary motive was to solve financial problems. We should understand that we are trying to use this technology for a lot of other purposes,
Right.
right? We are not looking at PGP that was, or encrypted emails that was in utility for a long time, right? We are not talking about Merkle trees that were in utilities for a lot of time. We are talking about a structured technology that was put to use for the first time in something called Bitcoin, which was purposely created to solve financial problems, right? And now we are deriving it out and trying to make it work for almost everything. And I do remember my really early days when I was speaking at Consensus One World Blockchain Forum Dubai, and these big advocates of blockchain. They used to come on stage and claim that within 2 years, within 3 years, we'll see this glass of blockchain, this water of blockchain. Not that they meant it literally. I'm talking about really positioned people. But what they meant from this is the entire world is going to go blockchain. And here we are, three years from then, 4 years from then. I think it's 4 years from Consensus One, 3 years from the first blockchain forum, 3.5 years or so. And we haven't seen that day as yet. So we have to understand. And by the way, this has been the fate of all the emerging tech. So if you guys remember, this was what we expected from AI. This is what we expected from VR. This is what we expected from AR. And everybody was thinking that, this is the next big thing. And the next 3 years are about this tech in particular. And everybody's like, anybody who jumps into this tech. And I do remember same happened for Python and Ruby on Rails, right? Every cousin of mine and every chap in the family or in distant relationship who was into software engineering used to call me like every second day. Should I go for Python? Should I go for Ruby on Rails? And here we are. Like Ruby on Rails is barely used by financial systems, not by a lot of companies, right? How many ROR programmers do we have today? So yes, the fish is not able to observe the water and is always able to look at the sky and think that is the big thing. But here we are, we live in the sky, the open air that the fish imagines to be, and we're not. I don't think we are even as happy as the fish. So blockchain people from within the industry, they think they're going to blast open and crack through what internet did in 20 years. They're going to crack it in 3 years. No, that's not happening. Never has happened for any other tech. Never will happen for any other tech. Yes, we are super fortunate. Although the event altogether is unfortunate, the COVID thing, but it is a very fortunate event that the global supply chain system is broken. And one of the biggest utility after financial services of blockchain is supply chain. So I think, and I very firmly believe in this, not because it had to happen, but because now is the chance for this to happen. If blockchain does not find its way into enterprises in the next 2 years, I don't think it's going to happen in the next 10 years. The 2 years are very important for blockchain to find its way into the enterprise. If not now, then never. I mean, even if it happens in 20 years, I don't think it's an achievement for the industry. 90% of people died off in the last bit, right? In the last 3 years, a lot of we all know 90% tokens died off, 90% blockchain projects died off, right? And the rest will die off in the next 5 years if it doesn't take off, right? I barely know ventures like Rohan who have actually sustained through this hard time, and I really salute him. I've seen him from like his when it was not even a proof of concept in his college days on a bench when people from my company were at his college, and I'm really proud to have been in touch with him for such a long period of time through the thick and thin of blockchain, firmly believing in his idea. But then at the same time, and I'm lucky to have him here, but at the same time, I can very strongly say that statistically, like from overnext, from Infotech Hub that I don't even hear from 70% of the projects that have ever pitched me. By the way,
Right.
I also don't hear from 30% projects that I've invested in.
So
Right?
Rohan,
So yeah,
Rohan,
I mean,
you wanna jump in here, Rohan, and like say something, build up upon that.
Yeah, sure. So, like traditionally, the mantra of software industry altogether has been, move fast and break things. But if you see on the flip side in the blockchain ecosystem, you just cannot do that because the stakes are so high. If someone finds a bug in a smart contract, and it's game over. Like, there are multiple hacks already happening in the DeFi space, which is, I think, one of the most well-run use cases right now. And so the thing in this space, what I have seen, contrary to the popular mantra in the software space, is you have to move slow and you have to maintain the resiliency of the system over efficiency. So that's definitely a different way of moving things in this space. That's what I've seen. And secondly, if you observe the 10 years or 11 years of the ecosystem as of now, we see what we have come to realization is, decentralization as a concept, as of today, it cannot take over every possible use case, right? I mean, if you see by the laws of nature, a centralized thing is obviously going to be much more efficient than a decentralized thing. So there's going to be some sort of a decentralization tax that you have to pay for a system to, mitigate that sort of a trust on a centralized system. Now, only some of the systems in the world, and money being the foremost, can sustain that decentralization tax, can sustain that tax and efficiency to bring about that trust factor away from, a centralized party. So that's what I see. In the next 5-10 years, there is going to be some of the systems that take upon that decentralization tax and run in a much lesser efficient system than their centralized counterpart. And but because most of the system are meant to be run in the most efficient way, we won't see all of the systems being replaced by a decentralized one. That's what I feel will be the kind of the trend in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. Ashish, you propagate blockchain for the future a lot. Would you like to have a take on this?
See, as Rohan was mentioning, there's a trade-off, right? If you're going for a centralized system, automatically robustness falls. You have a single point of failure or 2 points of failure. But if you're going for a decentralized system, there are many points of failure. So that trade-off, companies are going to have to make their own choices. Companies or organizations, at what point they are comfortable with this trade-off between centralization and decentralization, and who who or what is the right criteria for judgment here. So that is something which is not going to be easy.
Yeah.
There are a lot of consultants and advisors out there in the market who claim to be able to do this and achieve this. But if you look at their track records also, they are not really that great. So
Right.
it's where where I personally feel enterprises, they have to work on their own. They have two pilots on their own. Then
Yeah.
move it further and see okay, is this something fitting in? And as far as possible, bring in as much consensus at not just at the enterprise level, but also at the supplier level. The second chain outside your existing corporate structure. So that is very important, which I don't see a lot of discussion happening with your suppliers or vendors. As Gaurav was mentioning, in the supply chain space, even today there is not that much discussion happening with the downstream vendors, because most of the downstream vendors are MSMEs. They are there today, they may not be there a year, 2 years from now.
Yeah.
So how
Yeah,
do you
Ashish.
take that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the tough
Absolutely.
one.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just going to throw an interesting question out there. That I had a discussion with one of the normal like investor who invest in stock markets and gold and everywhere else in the traditional markets. So he was like if oil can go to zero or negative for that matter, why can't Bitcoin go to zero? So, Raghu, do you see a scenario where you see that there is a chance that Bitcoin could go to zero? And if you think that Bitcoin can go to zero, then do you think that blockchain can still sustain without Bitcoin?
Okay, a couple of questions there. Yeah, let me just articulate my thought. Yeah, theoretically, yes, right. It can go to zero if every holder of Bitcoin liquidates and one go on every exchange. This the possibility of Bitcoin going to zero is there, right? And again, going to zero is such it's such a trading type of question, right? Like most
But like general people, who are getting into Bitcoin and this ecosystem, they ask, they have this speculation, right? This is the first question they ask: why should I trust Bitcoin? Can it not go to zero? You
It
know,
can, and theoretically it can. But is it likely? As each year passes by, doesn't seem so. You look at it as as an instrument. It's more. It seems to be. It seems to have the same kind of attraction that gold has right now for most of the for
they're
most
comparing
of
it
the.
to oil. They're comparing it to oil, for instance. That oil went to zero. Why can't Bitcoin, for
I
instance?
don't think it has the same kind of utility.
Right.
It's more comparable to gold, and with respect to gold, it is a store of value. It is fungible. It is hard to counterfeit. There are ways to, and if you kind of look at those 5 or 6 characteristics that make gold a great investment, Bitcoin kind of has efficiency gains on each one of them. For example, storage, transportation, all of those, factors make Bitcoin a sound asset if there is enough consensus on it, which it has had. It had. Let's give it the credit that it deserves. It's lasted this long, man, and I think uh, you know uh,
Absolutely.
as every year passes, it seems to become an even more solid investment. When I'm confused about the second part of the question. Uh, when you say can blockchain exist without Bitcoin?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right way of framing it because they are not the same. Depends on which blockchain and for what use case,
For
right? And
instance, if we start using blockchain for supply chains, for instance,
depends
and
on which blockchain it's using.
I'm sorry.
Depends on which blockchain
Yeah.
that supply
Right.
chain is built
Exactly.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, as in, I'm talking about just the faith in technology. For instance, like, will people lose faith in and from a macro perspective that agar if Bitcoin fails, that's like, oh, that's the foundation that blockchain was built on. Like, is it's I know I'm talking a little hypothetical, but that's a general public that asks these questions.
I can foresee a perception issue
Yeah.
based on what you're saying. As soon as someone says blockchain, the first word that comes to mind, whether Ashish would like to say that or not, is Bitcoin. So, and you can't invoke blockchain without invoking Bitcoin. That's when it first happened, right? The concept of a chain of blocks was first written in the Bitcoin white paper, and forever it will be, it will be that that connotation will not go away. So yes, there will be a perception issue, but will the system itself stop working if a system built on, say, Tezos? Will that have the same effect if Bitcoin goes to zero? Maybe. It's such a
I
hard,
know.
such
I
a
know.
hypothetical question, but it's very unlikely because the investment fundamentals of Bitcoin is very, very strong. If you consider it as a store of value, it has everything that it does, everything that gold does, but better. And gold has lasted for centuries. So I tend to be a little more bullish on the because of the pure fundamentals of Bitcoin that way. So
Yeah.
maybe tell your friends that don't look at it as a short term thing that I can put in some money now and take some tomorrow. Look at it as a serious efficiency gain on an instrument that can be considered as a store of value.
Right. Gaurav, you wanna have a take on this?
I think I agree to Raghu 100% on the fact that this is too hypothetical of a question to even discuss. But now that we have it on the table for the sake of entertainment, we
Yeah.
might address it. And but one answer for the fact that Bitcoin goes to zero. Yes, the day it is as recognized as oil is, and it is as politicized as oil is, it might go to zero. I won't be surprised. But that day is not today, not in the next 10 years. Because right now we're not even 1% of the capital markets, leave alone the utility markets. Okay, what happened? Something wrong with my answer? And he's down.
I
You
get
ahead.
it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Your window actually shifted from my screen. I thought you didn't like my answer.
Rohan
And
dropped off.
and then moving Bitcoin from blockchain and blockchain from Bitcoin, again, too hypothetical, man. Now we have extracted the curcumin out of turmeric, right? You can use it as you want. Now you're saying what happens if we stop growing turmeric? I mean, you still know things, and there is synthetic curcumin. Same is the case with protein. Now you know how to synthesize protein. Why do you need all the meat and all the maybe dal of the world, right?
Yeah.
So now you know blockchain individually. Why do you have to depend on Bitcoin's existence for that to exist? Besides, we have essentially blockchain actually represents the value of trust, the fundamental, the function of trust that we have extracted by the name of blockchain from the Bitcoin white paper, and we continue to use it as and when and where we need to solve trust. Right.
Right.
Now that those were practical answers. Do you want more entertaining answers?
It's just like, we understand how the functionalities behind the scene works and everything, but for someone who has never heard about Bitcoin and blockchain, these are the first questions that they ask, no matter how hypothetical they are. I think we have
Absolutely.
yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah,
what it is.
I missed that perspective for sure.
Yeah. Ashish, do you wanna have some inputs here? Do you have some inputs?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Right, all right. So I tend to agree with what Raghu and Gaurav both are saying. The way I look at it, it really makes no difference what the price of Bitcoin is. Because at the end of the day, what are we looking for? We're looking for efficiency gains in business processes. When you're looking at our return of investment or return on capital, that's what we're looking at the end of the day. So in that equation, the price of Bitcoin or the price of any cryptocurrency will make hardly any difference as long as it is not part of the investment. If that price is a part of the investment, then it's a different story. But if it's not, if you're just using the underlying infrastructure, then it makes no difference as long as you're able to deliver on the efficiency gains or the what I'm looking for improvements in business processes.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Ashish. Rohan, you wanna close that up with your comments?
Yeah, sure. So what I personally feel is, and I'm strictly speaking from the decentralized perspective, the decentralized blockchain ecosystem, or the cryptocurrency ecosystem. And what I see from there is, even though most of the tech hasn't still be built yet, what why people are so still interested in the space is because of the belief system, right? Because it's more of a social movement than a technical movement, right? And because that's kind of the fact, if Bitcoin tomorrow goes away, like, you'll have that lack of motivation in the space that might, dry up the other coins as well. So without Bitcoin, personally, I don't see the space, moving forward. Like, it has to exist for other coins to exist.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, and just I'm gonna put the last question to everyone. Like I've been asking every speaker the same question. So do you think the halving is priced in? Like the halving is just upon us in a couple of days. Do you think it's priced in? We can start with you, Raghu.
No,
Yeah, it's one of those.
I
It's
am
one
not
of those
taking that bait.
Yeah, it's one of those entertaining questions that
Yeah,
people.
no.
Know.
For whatever reason, I'm not taking. I am not taking that bait. I don't want to make any price
Yeah,
predictions and things like that. Do your own research and
perfect. That's a good one. Yeah. Gaurav, you wanna?
make your own thought.
Yeah.
And look,
Instead
also
of instead of
I'm not the right.
instead of throwing it to us, you should ask which one of the speaker would like to take it first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, I know.
Yeah.
No,
I.
but let me. And I'm quite sure that the others on the panel will have a perspective on that. I want to be very clear that all my Bitcoin holdings are very, very long-term holdings. I've just got them and I've forgotten that they exist. So whether the halving is priced in, or whether it's not, or whether there is it goes to 3,000 or 1,000 or 10,000, I'm not worrying about that. Like I will not think about the fact that those coins exist until maybe another 5 or 10 years. Wrong person to ask, and I'm not going to make price
Yes, yeah,
speculations here.
totally. Rohan, maybe you can entertain the attendees a little bit.
Again, I think I'm not the right person. I think when you have Gaurav on the panel, I mean, I don't know why are you asking these questions to us, but
There's probably only one guy on this panel who wants to answer this question.
right.
Yeah. All right, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the time we have, guys. Thank you so much for taking our time. I really, really appreciate it, Raghu, Gaurav, Ashish, and Rohan. Yeah, thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
And once all of this settles down, we'll definitely meet up. Yeah, thanks a lot. I'll see you backstage. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
All right. See you.
Yep.
Thank you.